Hey guys, how's it going? Well, I guess you guys know it's been a really good week for George. Really, really good. So of course, we all know that. So, what I wanted to talk about today is this little clip CNN put out. Apparently, they've come to the conclusion that George is innocent. We've known this for a long time, but you know, they've still got their people in there that kind of whine, but it's pretty obvious. So let's take a listen to this.
Jonathan Good saw the night Trayvon Martin died goes to the heart of the Zimmerman case.
That night that you saw, the person who you now know to be Trayvon Martin was on top, correct?
Correct.
And he was the one who was raining blows down on the person on the bottom, George Zimmerman, right?
That's what it looked like.
Good lives in the subdivision where the shooting took place. He was watching from his patio about 15 to 20 feet away. Zimmerman that night was wearing a red and black jacket. Martin, a dark hooded sweatshirt.
The color of clothing on top, what could you see?
It was dark.
Okay, how about the color of clothing at the bottom?
I believe it was a light white or red color.
But that's not all Good says he saw. He witnessed physical blows being thrown, MMA style, mixed martial arts.
Well, of course, they're not giving you all the info here. It's not all laid out right and correct. Most of you guys have probably seen all this stuff and you know what's laid out. There is nothing left. All of the witnesses that said they saw George on top was after the shooting. And even, they didn't have the kind of perspective this guy had. And I pretty much think he hit it out of the ballpark yesterday. Him and all the other witnesses. Everybody that the state, it's almost like the state really wanted they wanted George to win this thing. I don't know. I don't get it. And then I was watching, and a lot of these news reports were still acting like the state was winning, and I'm like, what? How? Because it's like they don't understand that Trayvon came back up to the T. This is the thing that they haven't really focused on yet. Of course, it's not their turn, so they can't even talk about. They can only respond to the state's arguments. So when the state says so and so said this, then they can respond to that. But they can't just start talking about whatever in the case. They could in the opening statements. They could lay out all their evidence. But at this point, this is the state's case. When the state rests, then we'll move into the defense's case, and then they will put on their case, and then the state will cross-examine. So they'll switch roles. So I'm looking forward to that. That should really be interesting. But right now, I don't even know if we'll make it that far. This is crazy. It's really obvious that it was totally self-defense.
You saw it was the person on top in an MMA-style straddle position, correct?
Correct.
That was further described, was it not, as being ground and pound?
Correct.
Good also testified about one more key question. That voice screaming for help in the darkness.
The voice. This is so important. And yeah, I think everybody knew it, because even Trayvon supporters for a long time throughout the year laid off on the voice. They didn't really argue that it was Trayvon. If you would say that it was George, they might say, oh, no. But I think deep down they know. It's a Hispanic man's voice. You can hear it. It's obvious. It's George, the guy that we've listened to for over a year.
He believes belonged to Zimmerman.
The voice screaming for help, however many times that you heard it, it was just one person's voice?
When I heard it outside,
Yes.
I believe it was just one person's voice, yes.
So, you remember some of these supposed experts saying that there was two people and one person said something and they were able to pick it all up. It's just baloney. And if you watch the case, you really get a feel for all the information and the truth of it. What could be heard through the phone as opposed to what the witness could hear, because she was actually there. She's holding the phone, but it's got to go through the microphone on the cell phone and then pass through the airwaves and go through servers. Eventually it got to us. We could hear it, but the thing is, it's not nearly as clear. And there was a lot of things said and done during the time that the recording was being made that we didn't get to hear. Even though it was there was recording being made, she could hear it. Other people could hear it. So when they're making arguments that it couldn't have, these certain things couldn't have been said, or George couldn't have been being hit because no one could hear it, is baloney. It's pure baloney. Anyhow, let's continue.
And you now believe that that was George Zimmerman's voice, correct?
I never said that.
Do
I
you
said
believe
it could have been his, but I was not 100% sure.
I'm not asking for 100% certainty. I'm asking you to use your common sense and to tell us if you think that that was George Zimmerman's voice screaming for help, the person on the bottom.
That's just my opinion.
Just my opinion. That's his opinion. And if you listen to it, he explained why he really believes it, because George leaned up and looked at him when he yelled, and he said the projection of the voice was very clear. You know, if you're 15 feet away from somebody and they lean up and look at you, you get, and they yell at you, you get the projection right there. If Trayvon was yelling, he's facing away across the walkway and towards the buildings over there. So if he were to yell, you would hear it, but it would be echoing. And that's what he was saying in his examination when they were talking to him about it. He said, I would have expected if Trayvon was yelling, which didn't make sense because he's on top with the downward motion with his arms. I think the prosecution made a mistake by insisting that that we didn't see him throwing blows, because instead of saying he saw throwing blows, he saw downward motion with the shoulders, which indicates somebody holding somebody's head and slamming it on the concrete, the downward motion of the shoulders.
The next person to take the stand was another neighbor, Jonathan Manalo, who was the first person to talk to Zimmerman seconds after the shooting.
Were you the first person after the shot that came into contact with anybody out there, the defendant and the victim on the ground?
Yes.
The prosecution seemed to be focused on Zimmerman's state of mind, zeroing in on a phone call Manalo made that night. A handcuffed Zimmerman had asked Manalo to call his wife for him.
I had a connection with her right away, and I said, your husband has been involved in a shooting. He's being handcuffed, and he's going to be held for questioning at the Sanford Police Department. And around that time, he kind of cut me off, and he says, just tell her I shot someone.
Did you respond to that?
Yes.
What did you say?
Okay, well, he just shot someone.
Manalo also testified.
So the state was trying to make the argument that with that, because he said, just tell her that I shot someone, that somehow or another that proves an indifference to life, or, they're trying to make the case of that George had a depraved mind, that he just did it. He had no, he was walking around calm and cool. This was just another day at the park. He was having a good time. These people really need to get a clue. And that's why I reposted one of my original older videos about malicious prosecution. And you might want to check out that video, and I might make another one about it, because I really think that this is a very good case to take, I would say, an abusive person out of power, my personal opinion.
That Zimmerman had the look of a man who had just been beaten up, and even snapped this cell phone picture of Zimmerman's bloody head. On cross-examination, Manalo seemed to encapsulate Zimmerman's entire defense, quoting what Zimmerman told him moments after the fatal shot, and with the body of the teenager lying sprawled nearby.
So the state calls this guy up. This is their witness. Okay, Mr. So-and-so, what did you see? Did you see this? Did you see that? Yes, I saw everything that George said. Everything. His whole story is corroborated by me. I mean, hello? Everybody that called yesterday, all of the witnesses and the medical people, everybody so far has corroborated him. Even, believe it or not, Trayvon's supposed girlfriend, Dee Dee, or Diamond, or Rachel, or whatever you want to call her, she's corroborated his story. And she proved by all the lies that she made that the other lies. For example, she said that Trayvon went home. And in her statements, she said that he was within 2 houses of his house. So if that's true, how is it that he ended up all the way back up at the T, which was another over 100 yards away? Doesn't make any sense, does it? So that, and she doesn't understand the story. She doesn't understand the layout of the map. It's really important that she understand that. Without it, you can't argue your case. I know that Crump led her. I mean, I get that feeling and everything, but the feeling that I get is that he's not aware of the case enough. He reminds me a lot of Al Sharpton. You know, they've gotten so emotionally involved that they didn't take the time to really sit down and study all of the evidence and get it all together and say, okay, this is how it had to have happened. And get down to, and have people look at your information critically. I mean, if you're going to coach somebody to lie, at least get the story straight. And that was the main part about Trayvon being close to his daddy's house, and that he sees George coming to him. It's off the wall. So let's continue.
Guy was beating me up, and I shot him.
And I had to defend myself, and I shot him.
I'm sorry.
I was defending myself, and I shot him.
So this guy was beating me up, I was defending myself, and I shot him, is what he told you?
Yes.
Without hesitation?
No.
And from what you could tell at the moment, it seemed completely true?
Yes.
Testimony.
It's amazing. Why'd they call this guy? I know that they need to, that there's some sort of issue, and Florida law requires them to bring out all of the credible evidence, witnesses. As prosecutors, it's their job to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And that requires them to tell all the truth. So this is important that they do that. Whether they do it or not, that's another story. We're going to find out whether they did it eventually. So let's continue.
Later from a police officer who was one of the first responders on the scene seemed to align with Zimmerman's claims.
Was his jacket pushed up in any way?
I don't believe so.
Did you see any tear in his jacket?
No, sir.
What, if anything, did you notice about the condition of his jacket?
The back of it was wetter than the front of it, and it was also covered in grass.
That's the state's lawyer saying the state's lawyer is bringing up this information. And what's he talking about? What's he getting this guy to say? That there was grass all over the back of George. So this guy just bolstered George's story. It was wetter than the rest of his jacket and covered in grass. We've got the witness here you're looking at on the screen. He tells us that he saw George on his back the whole time, and that he got moved from the grass onto the concrete. And this is the guy that's 15 feet away. So, measure 15 feet. Stand on one end, and you'll see what I mean. We're talking close. He was the only one that was that close. And he's very credible. And, apparently CNN has woken up to the fact. You would think they would know about this. CNN is huge. They have so much money to investigate. Didn't they go down to the, I go on the internet and I look for the information on the feeds. They give us all the dumps there. It's all available. Every piece of information the defense has made available. I don't know what the problem is. I've certainly listened to everything that these guys have said are all on tape. They all gave it in deposition. How could the state spend this much money and cause this much trouble in a case that they're putting on that is actually defending George. This is their case. They're putting it on. And he is being defended by their case, their own witnesses. I mean, really, if you think about it, what are they trying to do? I just don't get it. Anyway, it's just wonderful to see, and I'm really thrilled for George. You know, great. I know that he must be thrilled. I know his team is celebrating this weekend. Everybody's really happy for him because it's over. I know there's going to be a lot of people with sour grapes because they just hate this fact. You know, they're only interested in racial issues apparently, and that's too bad for them. But this is about a man's freedom, an individual. So you know what? We don't look at skin color. We look at individuality. And so I'm super happy for George. Good talking to you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.